Hello and welcome to the session. Today we're going to be talking about leveraging AI and automation to grow without losing the human touch. So we're really excited to have a couple of fantastic guests here today. Today we're joined by Steven Eskaf, founder of the Rise Method, Brooks Coleman, founder of DataFit, and Jordan Duggar, founder of Impact Fitness Coaching Academy. So thank you guys, first of all, so much for being with us. And right now I'm going to give you all the opportunity to introduce yourselves and your business to our audience. So Steven, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Steven Eskaf. I'm from Melbourne, Australia, and I'm the founder of the Rise Method. So it's an online body transformation competition where folks can enter into our challenges and our transformation process. In Melbourne, I'm a registered osteopath and I work at Good Life Health Clubs. So that's a commercial chain, and I mentor a lot of face-to-face personal trainers who want to start and scale their businesses with lots of dreams to move into the online space. So we have lots of conversations around hybrid style training and how to move businesses inside of gyms into an online coaching model, and then helping to upskill those trainers so they can become, the best trainers out there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us today. Jordan, would you like to go next?
Sure. Appreciate you all having me. So my name's Jordan from Columbus, Ohio. So my wife and I started a health coaching company, T4E Systems, and we worked with right around 36 women. It was a lot of functional health-based coaching, online offer, personal training background, about 20 years in the industry. And then my wife and I started IFCA. So we basically packaged the model that we developed within T4E, started selling it into other coaches. And we've since, around 2018, we've helped about 4,600 coaches. Ultimately, our goal in that company is to help health and fitness coaches grow their businesses ultimately in service of others. And in doing so, we really want to create a ripple effect to transform lives of 10 million plus people, because we know the more coaches we help, the more people they help and impact they can make on their community. So that's the long and short of it.
Yeah, and you guys have had a ton of success in your field, so we're very excited to dig in and hear all the insights that you have today. Finally, Brooks, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me. So I'm Brooks Coleman, based out of Denver, Colorado. I run a company called DataFit where we help just busy parents and professionals in their 30s and 40s simplify their fitness and get in shape without, the mental obsession that can come along with some of those crazier approaches out there. I've been operating around 5 years or so. We've helped, close to 400 people now, and currently have a team of 4 coaches and about 100 active full-time clients.
Amazing. I feel like from between the three of you, we're going to get a lot of different perspectives today, which we're really looking forward to. So I guess we'll kick it off. One of the big questions that a lot of coaches in our industry have is around all the automation that's happening right now. So right now you see free workout programs everywhere, between like the AI apps, between YouTube, influencers. There's so much free content. So why would somebody pay for the personal training experience and pay for the coach? I'd love for you guys to chat a little bit about what's the real value that coaches are bringing. Actually, maybe Brooks, you could start us off since you are in the space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me with that question is that's the exact reason why coaching is valuable, right? There's more information than ever, and a lot of the people, at least on our end, that we're seeing come through are looking for exactly that, being able to drown out how much information is out there, because everywhere they turn, they're hearing about a new method or another fancy thing that they need to execute. And I think that's where someone they can trust that's going to guide them and help them just focus on what's actually realistic in their life, to just kind of drown out all that noise and stick with something long term instead of just getting sidetracked every 2 seconds on social media.
Yeah, that's definitely a valuable asset to have. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
I'll add a little conjuring perspective. And I do think that the personalization, the way to reduce information overload and all those things are important. But it's interesting. There's like a dichotomy when it comes to getting somebody to choose you as a coach, right? It's like on one hand, a client can only experience the value and how you can do better than AI or these other tools after they invest. But on the other hand, they'll only invest if they believe that you have disproportionate value to those other offers. And so from like a marketing perspective, the real key is understanding how to position, in my opinion, because we know that those things are true, right? You're going to be more personal, all those things. But the reality is ChatGPT, I mean, I think we can all admit, is probably a better coach than all of us, like knowledge-wise, skill, speed. So how do we communicate that perceived value? Well, the way that I like to explain it is kind of like an analogy. If you think about you're at dinner with your wife, boyfriend, and and the father leans over and asks, "Hey, what do you do, son?" Or "What do you do, young lady, for a living?" Most coaches in today's world are going to be like, "Oh, I'm an online fitness coach." Dad's going to have no idea what you're saying. Or I help people reach their fitness goals online. Instead, if you can be like, "Well, Tim, you know how most moms turn to restrictive diets and crazy workouts to lose weight, which actually ends up causing cortisol disruption and leads to more belly fat, low energy, long-term health issues." Oh, yeah, makes sense. Well, we built a 90-day online program that uses a cortisol slim method to help moms balance hormones, reduce stress, and lose fat sustainably so they can have energy, feel confident again, and show up better for their families. Okay, now you're differentiating because you're so clear about how you do, what problem you solve. ChatGPT and AI can't do those things. So that's how I would look at it.
I like that. That actually kind of leads into our next question about how to stay relevant. So you mentioned like having a very specific value add and being able to build that out. What other things can help people stay relevant? Like, should it really be focusing in on that niche and kind of elaborating on that as your brand story? Or should it be like the relationships piece or the results? What are some tactical tips you might give someone to build out their own response to a question like that?
Yeah, I guess I was going to say it really depends on what the final outcome is, what the desired outcome would be, and maybe linking back to that first question where we could provide value. I think understanding what the dream outcome is where we might step in. For example, the other day I was trying to be a gardener. Okay, I'm not a very great gardener, right? And I was able to access information online to see what was in season, what could grow in my garden. And I started to look at different plants and I decided to grow some chilies. I love some chilies. So I went through the process to build out a little planter box in my house and to buy the seeds and to plant the seeds in and kind of cross my fingers and hope that they grow. And I and waited and waited and waited and nothing really happened. So what I did was I went online and tried to find more information. So I went onto AI, I took some photos of my planter box and said, well, why isn't it growing? And it gave me a few reasons. And it wasn't until I spoke to my father-in-law who came over, who's a gardener, and he kind of showed me, he's like, well, you got the wrong soil in here. You need to move the plant box over there so the sunlight, and you're watering it too much. So I think when we step in as coaches, we are really a consultants. And I think if we change that language from, I'm a fitness trainer, I'm a fitness coach, I'm a fitness consultant, where folks out there have an outcome that they want to achieve, and they have access to information. Information is cheaper than ever right now. And if anything, like what Brooks works with in helping folks demystify their journey through fitness, that's where we step in as consultants to help to break that down into really simple processes, being like, hey, this is where you are, this is where you want to go, these are the steps that you need to take. And sometimes we overcomplicate it with too much information out there, and someone who's maybe a bit more experienced or has been there before can consult with that and then move them closer.
I do think that's a valuable aspect, the troubleshooting, because yeah, AI can only do so much and ChatGPT can only do so much. Now, I guess with that in mind, let's chat a little bit more about automation. So given what you guys were just talking about, what are some repetitive, like administrative tasks that are really good to automate to kind of give you a bit more bandwidth to focus on the big picture of your business? Brooks, would you like to start?
Like I said, we've got around 100 clients active full time right now. So the biggest pieces as far as automation there for us are going to be more so admin stuff, onboarding, payment processing, and then check-in structures and flows so that our coaches really have a pretty solid organization of who they're in touch with, what check-in forms. I mean, I think pretty standard. Most coaching companies out there, or at least that I've heard, are doing some sort of check-in form and making sure we have some sort of system for organizing that, and then absolutely incorporating some memory advantages from ChatGPT and AI is going to be really helpful in regards to specific clients of just small touches that we might not be able to remember from 3, 4, 5 weeks ago from specific clients. So making sure we're not totally outsourcing those conversations and making sure we keep our expertise involved too, but also making sure we take advantage of that. But that's the extent we're using those sizes of things.
Oh, that's great. That's practical. Anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll throw some insight on that. I guess from a contextual perspective, I remember this thing that an economics professor told me one time, and this was back in like 2011 before AI was really as common as it is now. But he was like, in times of high tech, there's an increased demand for high touch, right? So anytime there's an increased demand and lower supply of something, there's a disproportionate curve. So that way, that for that reason, price demand increases. And I think if you can figure out how to automate things that aren't relevant to the human touch component, and then you can charge more for the human element because you can provide more of it. So because it gets more scarce, therefore it becomes more valuable. So there are all so many different ways that we're using this with our clients and even in our own business. So for example, you could have a smart form that when a client onboards, like their onboarding form, so you learn everything about them. Zapier sends that into ChatGPT. ChatGPT already has a framework for how you build a client initial based program. It pumps it out for you, and then a coach goes in and discerns and explains why we're doing X, Y, Z, right? So that might save you several hours of actually doing the leg and admin work. Another tool that if you guys aren't using this, it's a game changer. It's called WhisperFlow AI. It's like 12 bucks a month. You can literally just ramble. It's a voice dictation software. And it works with any app or anything you're using on your computer. You just talk and it literally takes your text and regurgitates it back to you in more succinct bullets. It cleans it up. It makes it sound more professional, makes you sound smarter than you really are. So when you're doing check-ins, voice memos are great for check-ins, but sometimes clients don't want a 5-minute voice memo, right? You're trying to give them what they need quicker. That's a great tool. Another thing that I'll share, like, man, there's so many ways. One thing that a couple clients doing this, they'll give their clients like an Oura Ring or a data tracking tool. Maybe it's a sleep aid bed mattress cover. They get back in access to their results, and then they run those results weekly through ChatGPT, and then they text them a personalized progress update like, oh, hey, Tina, your HRV improved this week. Looks like your stress is picking up or slowing down. Work, or hey, we need to sleep a little bit better this week. It takes 5 minutes. And that level of personal attention to a client, they don't know. Most people don't even know you're using AI, right? We're in a weird time where you can demand human-based prices with AI-based labor if you know how to use it properly.
So all of that sounds a little bit complicated to the person who's maybe not as technically savvy. Obviously, Whisper AI sounds like pretty easy to get into. Some of those more complicated flows, how did you go about figuring out how to set that up from a process?
Ask ChatGPT.
Oh, smart. Outsource it to the bots. I like that.
Literally, it's insane. You just ask ChatGPT, hey, I'm trying to use you for this purpose. Will you give me step by step on how to do it? It like literally, it'll give you videos, tutorials, like.
No, that's great. That's great advice. So for the folks at home, if you're still confused, take notes, go to ChatGPT. So as I was saying, like AI can be intimidating for some people, and it can also be a great tool. Steven, do you have any notes on just ways that people can use AI in their business without losing that personal touch from your perspective?
Yeah, well, firstly, like I use it a lot for research. So, with the amounts of folks that come to Rise or that we interact with in gyms, I get questions every day of things I just genuinely don't know. And, I've been in the game for almost 2 decades now. And, I love fitness and I study fitness as my hobby that I like to do. But there's questions that come up that I just generally have no idea. I've never heard of it. So I use things like ChatGPT to ask those questions, to do that research, so that when I do go back to a client, I'm like, hey, like this are some ideas that we can take. And then even like summarizing some longer questions, like we've all had questions from clients or members that are essays and you need to break it down to smaller points. ChatGPT can help to break that down. And then to draft up a response to that person, we go, okay, where do I even start with something like this? ChatGPT can help use with that process. So I've seen trainers in gyms that use check-in forms. They send that check-in form to ChatGPT to summarize and then get a draft of a response to that person. And then even utilizing check-in forms to generate draft programs. So similar to what Brooks and Jordan probably do now, where we would use ChatGPT to help with just the basic like programming of a program, and then we come in with expertise to tailor it and tinker it to that individual and then assign it to that person.
When it comes to like using Trainerize, are there any processes or flows that you've set up to just automate further within the platform?
My model is a one-to-many model. So we have upwards of 500 to 1,000 people doing our program online. So once folks join, I just use the simple triggers that are built into Trainerize to assign add-on programs to them, and then even set up the whole automation of daily messages, daily tasks, habits, workouts, everything there. So I like to keep it simple, where I'm not trying to Frankenstein something with lots of different moving parts. I just simply use the Trainerize automation, where once someone purchases and joins my ecosystem, they get maybe a welcome email through probably the closest thing to Zapier, which is just through Aweber, and then everything's done through Trainrise. So I use the features that are there. I think it's great and does everything that we need to. If we start adding lots of other things, that's when, you know, we start to ask the question of like, well, how many moving parts? Is there a risk of things breaking? And, you know, does it need to be a better seam structure?
Yeah, just one thing to add to that. I mean, Trainerize is incredible. We're a huge fan of you guys. It's every client who comes in, we're like, hey, get off of whatever platform you're on. Let's go to Trainerize. There's a couple ways that I do know a lot of our students are using it right now. So the celebrating wins and milestones is huge. People want to be celebrated. I mean, you guys all came from in person at some point, right? Obviously, Steven, you're in the gym background. Dude, I would have clients who would keep me on payroll, keep hiring me literally just because I told them how awesome they were on a week-to-week basis. They just want somebody to be their hype man. And so you don't want to just automate that entirely, but what a few of our clients are doing are using a tool called HeyGen, just Hey, Gen. You can go in, you can upload a bunch of video footage of yourself and audio, and it creates a little AI avatar of yourself. Like, and it's you know it, like, unless you're not very smart, but it's still very interesting and cool. So what you can do is you create a little avatar, and a lot of our clients are doing this whenever a win comes up. It takes the win text, pumps it into a script, and hey, Jen, a little personal AI avatar video gets dumped into Trainerize to celebrate their win. And we're usually just like, hey, this is Jordan, the AI assistant. Wanted to let you know how cool it is that you celebrated your, 15th consecutive workout in a row. You're doing amazing. So there's things like that you can do using AI, but being honest that it is AI. People still think it's cool.
That actually that carries into my next question, because as experts in the field who deal with PTs all the time and you're helping them with their businesses, have there been situations where you've seen them go way overboard with AI? And like, what are some of the pitfalls they should avoid?
Well, look, I might just start off with the things I see the most almost daily. We manage 20, 30 different face-to-face trainers inside the club, and lots would lean onto things like ChatGPT to draft up copy. It's mainly around wording. So they would do things in their marketing campaigns, like creating posters or social media posts, or even bios for themselves, text messages they'll send out to prospects. And there is very low level prompting in those drafts and that copy, which is to our eyes, or people who use AI, really obviously AI. And whenever I see poorly prompted or very copy paste AI, like my mind just skims past it. I don't read it. Like when I get newsletters from other influencers and it's just an obvious AI letter, I don't read that. So I think that when you lose kind of like the personal touch or that personal brand in your messaging, just because you just grab something off AI and it's pasted it in, you become desensitized to the actual message of that. So copy is probably the biggest one I see of people just overusing AI.
Yeah, that's the biggest one. I saw something funny that Brock Johnson shared recently where he's like, he says most people, but I think this is especially true in the fitness industry, are using this keyboard, and it showed an image of a keyboard and it was like a ChatGPT button, copy, paste. And it's like so obvious. And like I think coaches especially, they suffer with imposter syndrome, thinking that they don't know enough always, versus just being like, you know enough to get some of your results. How do you just say that in a unique way? So people are trying to use AI or ChatGPT as a way to replace having to become a subject matter expert. It's like, oh, I don't know enough about this subject, or maybe you do, but you don't feel confident enough. So I'm just going to delegate that to ChatGPT. Where, like Steven said, if you know how to effectively prompt and you're a subject matter expert, you can be super dangerous, but you got to have both.
Yeah. It's almost like learn the skill and the craft first on your own a little bit before diving in and trying to automate everything. Otherwise, it'll come back to bite you. It's more or less maybe a rule of thumb. Okay. So another big problem that a lot of coaches face, and I'm sure you've all had an experience with this at some point, is burnout. So are there any systems or processes that you guys use to avoid burnout, or any methods that you would recommend to other coaches? And it could be automation related, it could be AI related, or it could just be like processes that you have and that are tried or true.
I'll hop in there. I'd say one thing comes to mind: set your boundaries and set the expectations with your clients on your response times. I had an assistant coach with us last year that when she first joined, she had push notifications on her phone from her clients to her 24/7. And we were like, you got to be done. Like you have to turn that off. And I get it. Like, you want to feel like you're providing that quick turnaround and that close touch. And if that's what you're promising, of course you need to be fulfilling what you promise. But I think for your sake, and especially the client's sake, because your clients also want you when you're at your best too. So setting those clear boundaries on when am I replying to messages, what time do I cut it off, and making sure they understand that as well, so that you can actually separate the two and keep your level-headed space for the other things you need to do is goes such a long way for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add something to that. Just like three quick things. So number one, a lot of coaches we find they end up getting burnt out because I don't think they were ever meant to get into this. So for example, they get stressed when they have clients who aren't very accountable, who aren't very disciplined, who aren't very routine, and they're like, "Oh, why can't I just change my niche to like highly disciplined, motivated people?" And it's like, "Well, listen, you got into this industry to solve the problem, which is that they aren't that. So how are you mad about the fact that you're attracting people who don't have these areas, right?" Like, so it's one, it's having an expectation, right? That's the problem you're solving. Number two, it's like taking care of yourself. A lot of coaches, you guys have probably seen this, they get into the industry and then they just let themselves go. They stop sleeping, they live on caffeine, they live in their office, they barely move. And next thing they know, their nervous systems are a wreck. And then the final thing is like something that's worked well for me is I call it three C's. So it's a way I structure my calendar where each day has kind of a dedicated day. So in a fitness coach example, don't have check-ins every single day of the week sparsed out throughout the whole week. Like dedicate a day for those. So you can put on a check-in hat or marketing hat, whatever. And then each day I start with like creation. So creation, there's a book by Cal Newport called Deep Work that's really great that talks about if you don't put your deep work, things on the business that are most important for you to create, like content, learning, whatever it might be. And then you just task hop all day, you leave sludge on each prior task. And then by the time you get to the third or fourth or fifth thing, you're just a mess. So the beginning of my day's creation, middle part is coordination. That might be client responses, team member stuff. And then the third part is connecting. So after 4 p.m., I shut down. I'm dad mode, period, done. Like no meetings, nothing. And most people just don't have that set up until they have to. So if you can set that up beforehand, it's going to be a good thing.
That's a good
Yeah.
advice.
I
Steven?
just wanted to add in that similar to what Jordan was mentioning, that the self-care is what I think is important. And I see lots of trainers, I've seen lots of osteopaths, I've seen lots of other professionals that get bogged down into life. They wear different hats. Let's say myself, I'm running a business, I'm working, I'm mentoring, I've got two toddlers at home. Things can get pretty wild. And I remember when I was younger, first in the space, I would be telling other adults that you've got to find time, you've got to make time, you've got to make it a priority. Where, frankly, I was being a bit of a dickhead at the time. Where now I really empathize with that. Where it's hard and it's easy to make you a lower priority. So the first signs that I see in coaches out there that are at risk of burnout is when they put their own training to the side, where they prioritize others before them. And we've heard this before, where you've got to fill your cup first. I think that is important, like prioritizing your own training, your own health, your own well-being first, so that you can give to others. And if you are taking those first steps to push that away because other things are important, that's early warning signs that burnout is around the corner. And what happens from burnout is you just exit the industry. And that's what we all want here is more folks in the industry, more in the fitness army out there, helping people live better lives. So, do it to yourself to prioritize you so that you can help others.
Just one more quick thing. I want to make sure that people hear this one thing. It's okay to fire a client. It's totally okay for you to part ways with the client. If there's one client that you just lay awake at night that you can't stop thinking about, that's stressing you out because they're just dumping the fact that their husband just cheated on you, and then the kids are like blah blah blah, like all this stuff. It's okay to say, hey, we're not a good fit. You'll find a better client.
Yeah. On that note, that sparked for me. Like we have a rule when you get a message from a client or there's a specific client that's bothering you or getting to you, you got to go read or remind yourself of at least 3 to 5 positive clients, positive wins at the same time, because we have such a strong negativity bias in our head that can really get to you. If you don't keep that context, you can have 99 great ones and one bad one, and all of a sudden that is clouding your entire day, and you forget how much you really enjoy helping the other 99.
Those are all fantastic tips. I do really think it's important for coaches to have the idea of balance and also looking at the positives also keep that in mind. We have one question left. I'm going to give each of you the opportunity to share any final advice for building a business that is both high tech and also personal. So I'd like to go around, and maybe Steven, would you like to start?
When I look at literature on heart medication, okay, so we look at studies on folks that need to take heart medication to stay alive, right? We look at their adherence to that, and we find that the adherence starts off well and then slowly dips off because of a range of different reasons. It's not in their environments to do it. It's not a habit. They don't have anything to keep accountable to. And in the same way, we can use that idea in fitness where we can leverage technologies to give the best program to people, probably like what Jordan was saying at the start. AI is going to be better than us, right? AI is going to write better programs. It's going to be more personalized. We're going to have more data from smartwatches and wearables so that we can prescribe better programs. And that program is only worth its weight if someone actually adheres to it. So as we get better in the tech space and we're able to provide better products to people, our role as coaches, as consultants, as mentors to people through their fitness journey is about adherence, getting people into the gym, getting people moving and removing those barriers away from it. And the final thought that I would leave with you is that idea around Garry Kasparov, world champion chess player, when he was the first person to be beaten by a computer playing chess. He was a grand champion, world champion, and he was beaten by a computer, right? And he came out to say that this isn't the end of chess, right? This isn't the end of competitive play. What we need to do is to work with technology to advance. And now the best chess players are the ones that use AI and the human elements to play. So the way that we should be approaching fitness and the game that we're in is to utilize technologies to take away a lot of the grunt work, but still putting the personal back in personal training, having those connections, those relationships with people to keep them accountable so they still actually do the damn thing.
Well put. Brooks, would you like to go next?
The first piece I would recommend is don't assume what is most valuable to your people. You're attracting the people that you attract for a reason, and we always like to come up with some story about why that is, and it might not be the reason you think. So on that note, like a lot of people do stuff a certain way. We don't necessarily want to be just having that group call on Monday morning because you saw somebody else doing it. Poll your clients, ask them, and especially the clients you really like working with, ask them what's most important to them so that you're not wasting time to check a box in your head for something that really maybe isn't even doing anything for them. And then I would just say on the AI side of things, flip your mindset from outsourcing to amplifying. So if you start to think about congruence across everything you're doing, the great thing with AI, like we already talked about in this conversation, if you just go prompt it like a black box with no background or feeding it anything or giving it any guidance, of course, it's going to be very obvious. But if you start to think of the assets you're already building or the coaching or what you do best already, like a group call, like a training video you're filming for your clients, go grab that transcript, feed that to the GPT, keep throwing stuff over there. That takes a few seconds. And then as you start to realize that, like, instead of working on marketing here and client fulfillment here, you can start to be feeding these all back to it. And then you have no idea what that might be useful for. All of a sudden, that group coaching call where you were talking someone through something for 20 minutes, boom, that's coming out on the other end of content that's based on what you said, not just asking GPT for it. So I think really starting to allow things to blend across different buckets of what you're doing will amplify your unique voice and what you're doing with what you do best, really.
Well said, Brooks. All right, Jordan, final tip, take us home.
Yeah, well, I love both those answers. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach because you guys kind of touched on like the initial angle that I was going to talk about. But I think one of the biggest things that drives burnout for coaches is the need to have to replace clients. They create this sort of revolving door because they don't have their offers structured in the right way. They're not charging enough. We know that that's huge in our industry. And it screws everything up because they constantly have to chase clients. And where if you look at like how retention truly impacts a business, Most coaches just don't realize how important it is. Like a 5% increase in your client retention can grow your profits by 25 to 95%. And the way to think about this is I'll throw out some tactics. Like, I want to ask the audience, I want you to think about what you think the average person spends over the lifetime as a Starbucks customer. Okay. That's, in other words, LTV, lifetime value. It's an important number. You should know what that means. And I'll explain it in a second. But the number is $25,000. That's what the average person spends at Starbucks. Okay. And if you ask yourself, well, what's more valuable? This, I mean, don't get me wrong, Starbucks has good coffee, but like, your Fropa Mappuccino or whatever, or what you're actually doing with your clients. And the average lifetime value for a normal trainer or coach per client, you guys tell me what you think. I would bet it's like $900, $800, $700. So how do we maximize LTV? Well, to grow a business, there are three ways to do it. You can get more clients, right? That's one. Two, you can make your clients worth more. You can get them to buy more times. So that's where what we suggest is having a really good offer structure where, for example, we had a client, Vanessa, who last year her business did $1.2 million, and only 30% of that came from new clients. So she sells a $2,500 90-day program on the front. She re-signs people into a 12-month contract at $6,900, so cheaper per month on the re-sign. 69% of her revenue came from back end. So she got there signing 4 clients a week. And think about how much less stress you have to deal with if you only have to sign 4 clients a week. Well, it's like, how do we drive retention? To your point, Brooks, it's not always the things we think it is. What we have found in the fitness industry on the front, you got to get a personal result, right? You got to deliver on your promise. That's a prerequisite. But beyond that is people want to have continued access to culture and community. So what drives that? Well, there's a number of things depending on the offer, right? Celebrating milestones, having specific language that you use, creating accountability partners within the program, hiring a community manager that is there to be your hype person. Like, there's so many different levers that you can pull, but you have to first identify what your culture is like and then figure out how to disseminate that. And that's really what creates it. But the first thing is getting over your fear of charging enough. Because if you undercharge, you're going to consistently have to constantly chase clients. And it's just going to be a recipe for burnout.
Yeah. And I guess to wrap up there, like Jordan said, culture and community is one of those things that AI will never be able to replace. So keep that in mind as you're building out your business. Use these tools the best you can to automate the things that don't matter as much, so you can put more time into the elements that really do matter and will grow your business, like the culture, like the community, and like the value you're adding person to person. So thank you all for being with us. We appreciate all of the insights you shared. And for everyone watching, enjoy the next session.